it's beyond thrilling and borderline extremely emotional to be here right now. I can't believe I'm. And this all seems like I'm faking, but it's not. It's weird. I love this museum, and I love Maine, and I'm so excited that Mark Vizier is here, who I started at Maine College of Art at the same time as Mark, and my wife as well, and Sage Lewis, who's somewhere around here, is the coordinator, and she's a dear, dear good friend, and my son Emmett A. Foley, who this is dedicated, was kind of his babysitter nanny for the first year. And Maine, I'm from South Bend, Indiana. Grew up, born, raised, sequestered in the Midwest. My parents thought vacation was Indianapolis, like from South Bend to Indianapolis, that was it. So when I came to Maine for the first time as a visitor, I fell in love with it, as everybody says, but I mean, I really fell in love with it. I realized that I was born not in the wrong body, but in the wrong spot. And so when I came here to teach at Maine College of Art, it was like a dream come true. And now we're back in Ohio. My wife is education director at Columbus Museum of Art, and her two sisters are there. So we moved back. So this is all to say, like, why I'm here, and this is my home. I mean, I always say that. Coming home. So, in that sense, being here and being allowed to do this big, giant thing here was a huge relief and a lot of fun, because I'm usually the somewhat default stay-at-home dad with the kids, so I'm trying to paint and do these things, and to come here for 6 days and just like paint all day was huge. So yeah, like my joy factor in terms of being an artist is shifted. It's like uninterrupted time is good. So, all to say that this, in a lot of ways, has a lot to do with my son being born. We have a 1-year-old girl now, and we're done. No more kids. And when I was here before, I was doing a lot of just straight-on paintings, and I still do. In fact, all of these works are made individually. And whenever I do an installation, I it's like a deck of cards. I shuffle them in, and I see what I can do with them. When I was doing the paintings originally, in Maine, when I moved to Maine, and still to this day, my motivating kind of reason for thinking about things, my way of knowing the world around me is through ideas of the grotesque. And the grotesque is not always something, gross or horror related or anything like that. It can just be kind of a melding together of things. And so, since I generally don't understand things, I try and just put them together and think by analogy. And so a lot of those early paintings look more like formal, traditional, historical grotesque. And then what happened was I started throwing in all these other elements and the grotesque things. I wanted something painted very deliberately, almost with like an Ang kind of finish to it, and blending and everything else. But then next to it, to get that contrast and that kind of paradox, I wanted like a Bugs Bunny paw or something like that. Like I wanted like things that don't mix together. And so consequently what happened, to my annoyance, was everybody started thinking that I was influenced by comics and underground novels and graphic novels, which I've never been into. I'm not a good boy in that sense. I have nothing against that stuff, but I would get people coming up to me, talking to me about all this underground comic stuff, and I had no idea what they were talking about. But it started to get annoying after a while, and what I tend to do when I teach and when I work on my own work is when I don't understand something, I decide, well, I better figure this out. So I decided, okay, I'll figure out what this cartoon thing is about. It definitely wasn't comics, it wasn't comic books, it wasn't newspaper comics. And then my son was born, and I started thinking about my childhood and what I loved as a kid, knowing I always wanted to be an artist, and it was Looney Tunes. And I thought, oh yeah, that makes sense. Looney Tunes, Chuck Jones. And so on the occasion of my son being born, I mean, he's like only maybe 3 months, I start like ordering all the box set Looney Tunes DVDs from Amazon for him, right? I'm like, they're coming in, they're piling up, and he's asleep in my lap, and I'm watching them. But, which it was great, but I started realizing, no, it's not. I don't even like the narrative, I don't like what's going on. I like the backdrop, of Looney Tunes, and I like the world where this stuff can happen. This imaginative place where, you know, a coyote can be flattened, and you can peel him off and shake him, and he comes up again. So I thought all those ideas are good, so it's like this imaginative playground. And, you know, by the time I'm figuring all this out, our house is covered with toys that are all these colors, and you're stepping on them, and anybody who has kids or been around them knows. And so you either fight it or you go with it, right? So in a lot of ways, those things source all of this stuff. And the thing that I found interesting about considering my work in relation to animation is one, painting is I don't mean this in a disparaging way. I mean it in like a generative, creative, like I love this about painting. Painting is kind of lame. And what I mean by that is it just sits on a wall, it doesn't do this, and it doesn't, you know, Ethan's thing, I got to tell you, that guy was working like, where is he? I mean, it was insane. He was working like all the time. He moved here in December, collected stuff, built it. I mean, it was amazing. It was really, really cool. And so, and then Sam, you know, he's like working with these sound people. And I joke about this with my students all the time. Painters were just like, oh, gee, I don't know. What do I do? And it's not really, you hang it on a wall, it doesn't do anything. So I got these, I was really interested in all these Victorian era visual amusements and like after image. And if you stare at these long enough, you're going to get to the green lines and all that stuff. But also reflected light, and I don't have a lot in this, but the Phantasmagoria piece that was here with the animals, they all have those red lines there on purpose so they make a just very faint glow. And I